maybe it's just me, but it just seems that Giannis Antetokounmpo just never really gets the full respect he deserves. For the past, I'll say 5 years, Giannis has been an absolute beast. From winning two MVPs, a Finals MVP, and a championship in 2021, he's been at the top of his game in his prime for all of that time. And it just seems like when you listen to, say, the Inside Crew on TNT, or you listen to Undisputed with Shannon and Skip Bayless, well, that'll change soon, and Nick Wright and those guys, it just seems like they'll say it in passing. They'll be like, "Yeah, Giannis is the greatest player right now," and then it's on to bigger and better topics to them. So why? Why does it seem like we overlook Giannis and kind of gloss over his dominance, but still LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, these guys are first segment players. But one of the greatest players in our current generation, just, he gets a soundbite about, the Bucks are great, he's great, but the Warriors or but the Lakers and this and that. And we know partially why that is because the Milwaukee Bucks, for all intents and purposes, are not a major big market team. And, their style is, I would equate it to maybe the San Antonio Spurs, where it's not the most exciting basketball. They play the game well, but they're not a team that's, you would say, was must watch because they play the game right. They play the game in a fundamental manner. So you may not run to your screens to watch them play unless they're playing against one of those other teams I just aforementioned. I mean, you look at his success from 2019 to 2023 and just listen to these numbers. 2019, he had 27.7 points per game, 12.5 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists. 2020, 29.5, 13.6, 5.6, 2021, 28.1, 11, 5.9, 2022, 29.9, 11.6, 5.8, and this year he averaged 31.1, 11.8, and 5.7. Those are some pretty good numbers for a pretty great player. Not to mention, you look back at that championship team in 2021, who can forget Game 6, where Giannis went off for 50 points, 5 blocks, and got the Finals MVP. And during those playoffs, he averaged 30.2, 12.8, and 5.1. Pretty good stuff. But I have my theories. In fact, I have 3 of them as to why Giannis just doesn't get first segment minutes. And I'm going to break it down into 3 theories, which is number 1, he's foreign. Now, I know we have many, many great foreign players that have come through the NBA. But when you think back on them, many of them were overshadowed by other players during that time. You got Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, overshadowed him during that era. You had Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, overshadowed him during that time. Then you had Yao Ming, who was a megastar and on his way to being a megastar, but injuries kind of set him back. So his career was kind of short. And now we just kind of remember him, but not remember him like we do other great players because, his time was cut very short. Even guys like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, I go back to that San Antonio Spurs. They unfortunately got the label of being a boring team, so those guys didn't really get their due. It was just kind of like the San Antonio Spurs are good, but were they must watch? Were they talked about a lot? Not really. And I feel the same can be said for Giannis. It's something about being able to relate to somebody that makes you get behind them a little more. And the fact that there is somewhat of a language barrier. Yes, he speaks English, but it's with a deep accent. And maybe it's just me, but it seems like a lot of media and a lot of even fans just don't quite embrace foreign players because of that somewhat, that they don't get the same type of acknowledgement as an American born player or someone that speaks fluent English without the accent, we just kind of gravitate to them more than we do the foreign players. Now, you can correct me and say I'm wrong about that, but that's just something I've seen, even back in the days of Hakeem and even Dirk. And even now, someone else that's a foreign player, Luca. Luca kind of does get some love. I think he even gets more love than Giannis in some ways. But I think it's because of his gameplay, and which I'll get to Giannis is in a little while, that kind of captivates fans to get behind him a little more. He's doing things that are phenomenal. And he's just, I mean, he looks like a player that U.S. market would get behind for some reason. And Giannis does too, but it just doesn't happen, I guess. And I'll talk about maybe it's his game, which is my number two theory is that Giannis is more power and grace than flash and flair. You look at some of the greats, your LeBron James, your Steph Curry's, your Kevin Durant's, they have some sort of signature thing that they do. Even Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaq. They have kind of a way, a flair, a flash to them that can captivate the crowds. You have LeBron with his gestures after a big dunk or some kind of great basketball move. He'll gesture something to the crowd and get them hyped up. Steph, he has the shimmy where after every three, he does a little shimmy. Or, he has the mouth guard shoe. Then you have KD known more for his stoic and just ice cold demeanor when he's hitting big shots, making unbelievable plays. Whereas you see him as this ice cold killer. That's why he was dubbed Slim Reaper. So Giannis, he's more footwork and power. And you just really don't get a lot of, and because he's not a great shooter, like say a Luca, in this era where for whatever reason, the 3-point shot is kind of embraced a lot by fans and people. They want to see those outside shots. And if you're not making them, you're just kind of basic in their minds to some people. So the fact that Giannis is more Shaq than he is Dirk in his gameplay, he doesn't really have that great of a mix. He's not a terrible shooter. He's not a terrible 3-point shooter at 30%. That's for quite a few of these last years. That's not terrible in the grand scheme of things, but it's just not, he doesn't take a ton of them. He's doesn't seem like he's confident in that shot. So when he takes them, it's kind of like him praying that he'll make it. And even, with his power and his grace, you might get a mean mug from him, but Giannis just seems so laser focused. Whereas Shaq, when he dunked on you, he had that arrogance to him that just exuded after a big dunk. Whereas Giannis is just business as usual. Makes a big dunk, maybe flexes, and he's running right back down to get on defense. Or he gets the and one, flexes, but then you can see he's laser focused on hitting those free throws. So there's not a whole lot of, getting into the opposing team's face or, giving them that look. He does it from time to time, and I don't, unfortunately, don't get all of the Bucks games, but just from what I've seen, from whether it's been regular season or playoffs, he's just, he just doesn't have that, and maybe him not having that signature, I guess you could say, gesture or whatever. It just comes across as he's just a guy that's playing great basketball, but he's business as usual, kind of like a Tim Duncan. So you basically see a lot of this, but also you see a lot of this, unfortunately. And now my third theory is Giannis is just a nice guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but he just seems like a genuinely nice guy. And sometimes that does captivating fans. I mean, you even look at the first round of playoffs, Dylan Brooks was in the headlines more than Giannis, even though Giannis and the Bucks were in the headlines because they had a first round exit. But Dylan Brooks got a lot of media attention just because of him trash talking LeBron James. So, somebody that's not even in the stratosphere of some of these players was more talked about than a guy like Giannis, a two-time MVP, Finals MVP, because of his bad boy tactics. But you're not going to see that from Giannis, and I guess that kind of lends into the, he's He's a great player. He's fun to watch, but am I clamoring to see him just do the normal basketball thing? Because for every one of these, you might get one of these. But I mean, he's just a guy out there having fun and doing it at the highest level. So, I mean, I just feel like he doesn't quite get the love that he should. But to sum it up, I have an analogy for this. Giannis is that coworker that is super reliable, super focused, goes to conferences and actually learns something, goes out and gets their own certifications. They are the perfect employee and does almost everything the right way. At that point, it becomes the norm. So now they're no longer seen as going above and beyond, but rather it becomes an expectation. So maybe we expect Giannis to be great every year and don't give him enough flowers for what he's doing currently now. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. And just like the gift, see y'all later, and we'll be back soon. Thanks, guys.